We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else. As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
You just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam. So who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football, I like football season, all the things that go with
it. Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo back in the chair next to Sam Monson here on a Monday morning. And we're going to be breaking down Sam's latest mock draft.
What's up, Steven?
Hi.
You're back.
I am.
In rainy Midwest Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Far cry from California, huh?
It is. You know, Palm Springs is like
Nicer?
part of their, yeah, it's nice. Part of the airport is outdoors.
Okay.
That's how much faith they have that it's not, going to rain like it is here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, there's a lot of places like that in the world.
I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
places that just don't even need to think about it.
Yeah,
It's not going to rain today.
It's a good trip. I see you got some good replacements for me. Mike Renner, Trevor.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was fine.
Some daily replacements and everything, too.
Yeah.
Good work. Appreciate it.
We tweeted out your golf.
Yes. I tried to send footage of my unfortunate golf shots. I had some good ones, too, but none of those made the video.
No.
So,
I mean, that one was good. It was a good video. It was a bad golf shot.
yeah. We were on a very good course.
Yeah.
That, tough to play within the lines there on this course. A lot of houses.
Certainly when you're hitting houses over there, it's tough to stay within the lines.
I pulled it and hit houses. I sliced it and hit houses. It's
You
not
were
even
saying-
a slice. It's like directly to the right.
Yeah, I mean, that was just over there.
Just bad.
I liked your description of how many balls did you begin with and how many did you finish with as a collective.
Yeah, so our trio, I want to say we had, let's say 16.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple more. We ended with 2.
And you were conserving them late on.
Yes, there was definitely a point where if there was water, we were playing best ball. So if there was water, we would just take the first shot if it was good enough and just, make sure we could finish the round.
Yeah, just not even.
Yeah, made some business decisions.
We're standing on this one. We're not even attempting a better one.
We were playing until sundown, and, we knew we'd probably get 12, 13, 14 holes in, and we were just trying to make it to the end and survive. And we finished with 2. Felt like a win. So shout out to Nate Gerstel for supplying a few extra golf balls.
Yeah.
Because I was losing them left and right. Anyway.
Nice work.
Yeah, thanks. So good trip. Good to be back here. And as always, we got a little mock draft Monday. But first, before we get into it, we'll get into our charities, which yours is getting close. Mine's a little behind still.
Yes. Yeah, we need one last final push to get this done so we can move on to the baseball stuff, which is me pitching and an over-under on what speed that's going to be. And also, we still owe people the catching thing. There's a lot of baseball stuff to catch up on. We can't get there until either you do combine drills or I have to replicate a stupid TikTok dance. So, our pin tweets, at PFF_Sam, at PFF_Steve. Let's donate, get us over that last little hump. Mine is raising money for Sunshine Kids, a charity that does activities for kids with cancer and stuff, helps them feel like kids for once as opposed to just people with cancer. A really great cause, and as I say, you get to see me dress up like an idiot dancing on TikTok. Yours?
Mine is Heritage House right here in Cincinnati. Slogan is "Hope is Here." That's that off-centered slogan that you see there.
It's a beautiful image.
So we need a late push here as well, and if we can get money raised for Heritage House, the faith-based recovery program here in Cincinnati for men battling addiction, I will do full combine drills, including hand size and the whole thing, because that's important too. I want to see if I could break the record.
I mean, we already know you can.
I don't. We haven't confirmed, but I think I could break the hand size record.
Yeah.
I think my speed score might be low, but I'm curious where my 40 is these days.
I drew a tape measure on my hands the other day, and turns out I've been dramatically underselling my teeny little hands. They're 8 inches, which
is not the worst.
No, it's in fact it's significantly larger than the worst ever, which is where I thought it would be. And it does raise like that. The kicker this year, there's some kicker with like the smallest hands ever measured at the combine. They're like 7 1/4 or something. That guy, like, he's a legitimate freak.
Yeah.
My hands are tiny, and they're bigger than that guy's. That's insane.
I'm impressed.
Also,
you're not the worst.
Kenny Pickett. Now that really throws into some like serious context. Kenny Pickett's hands. We're talking 8 5/8 for Kenny Pickett. So 5/8 of an inch bigger than my tiny little hands. And I 100%.
Can we get Sam a football over here just to show how difficult this is?
Have problems uncorking like the full power of the cannon on a deep ball using a regulation NFL football. I struggle to believe that 5/8 of an inch is enough to overcome that.
That's why the Panthers had to confirm.
That's why he has to wear gloves. I mean, seriously. Like, you can 8 5/8.
You just get like super big gloves for like 9.5 inch hands, and it's like, oh, there we go.
No,
it's like having a 9.5 inch hand.
You just need the tack. Like, you just need the grip. Otherwise, you're sunk. 8 5/8. It's a problem.
I can't believe you reached 8. I'm impressed.
Same.
What do I need to get to 12? 11 and a half?
I think was it DeForest Buckner was like 11 5/8 or something. You got to hit the foot.
I got that.
You got to have hands of feet, except in the good way, as opposed.
Well,
to catching.
we'll only be able to see that if we can get over that $2,500 mark.
Yeah. So pin tweets
for Heritage House. It's on our pin tweets at PFF_Sam for you, at PFF_Steve. What is it? What did I say yours was? At PFF_Sam.
No, you said that fine, and then you just stop making words when you try to say yours.
Yeah. Look, sometimes you miss a couple shows, you get a little rusty.
Yeah.
I'm rusty.
Okay.
You think it's just easy to just wake up and talk football for 2.5 hours every day?
I mean, look, I don't know what kind of routine you have to go through before you get in that chair.
Yeah, like voice.
Those exercises.
Yeah, you get
scales or whatever
warm
they do.
up.
What are they called?
Train the brain to say words in a row. At PFF_Steve is where you can find my pinned tweet.
Yeah.
Also in the YouTube description here.
Yes. True.
All right. Are the people here?
Most of them. I need to ask. I need an appeal for help. At some point in late May, early June, myself and my dad are going to be driving across the country from San Francisco to Orlando, more or less. And along the way, we're going to be raising money for charity as well. We're going to do some stuff on our social media. We'll create a video to put up somewhere in the podcast and things as well. Basically, we're driving a vintage Jaguar E-Type across the country, which is about upwards of 3,000 miles.
The 96 Jag?
No, I'm much older than 96 Jag.
So it's not Tony
Predates,
Baselli?
in fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, predates, in fact, the franchise by quite some significant margin. So we need route suggestions. We need places to go. We need things to see. Generally, I think we're good for like the first 1,000 miles. You know, anything west of Colorado, I think we're relatively covered. But throw in suggestions. Anything east of Colorado, we're struggling. There appears to be like a giant chunk of the country where even the guidebooks and, you know, the suggested route planners and stuff are just tapping out and want nothing to do with it. So if you guys have suggestions of places we can go, this route is entirely flexible. It literally just has to start in San Francisco and end in Orlando and take about 2 weeks. Beyond that, any suggestions welcome. So send us emails or tweet or whatever you want to do. Email is probably the easiest. What's our email? NFL Podcast at PFF.com. Fire us emails, you know, throw trip or something in the subject line so we can see it easily, and give us ideas of where on earth we can stop and see things along this journey.
I want to see a drawn map. What is the best route? That's what I think you need.
I want places, things to see, to must-sees along the way.
You need to catch a baseball game.
No, I don't.
At least one baseball game.
We're trying to do this inside a certain time frame. All you're doing is literally setting fire to 3 hours.
Yeah, some of the games could be quicker. You could get a nice 2.5 hour game in there.
Yeah, great.
Well, so you're going to leave me for a couple of weeks. I'll have to find all sorts of guests, replacements for you.
Yeah, you'll manage.
Yeah, that'll be early off-season stuff, so we'll have some fun with that while you're on your trip. Don't forget the PFF NFL Podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home? Planning to start a family? Wondering how to make your money grow? Well, Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. All right, man, you ready to get into this mock draft over on the website? Are you the feature mock draft right now?
I believe
PFF.com. I think we're starting to crank them out.
Saying it's mock draft Monday, and that was my mock, so presumably.
All right. So, and you put in the mock draft simulator grade. So someone's already graded your picks.
Yes, the mock draft sim has graded my picks, or my mock, or the picks of the teams within my mock.
All right. So what is your criteria for this? Because, again, every mock draft is different. Some are what you would do. Some are what you're hearing and all that stuff. Where are you in your mock draft here? What are you?
Yeah, so this is not what I think, what I would do. This is some variation of what I think might happen. There's some trying to pull signal from the noise, the Trayvon Walker hype, all that kind of stuff, what's real, what isn't, discerning actuality from the media spin and the PR that's going on right now, and the disinformation campaigns, the fake news. So some attempt at, actually predicting what's going to happen, with the obvious caveat that anybody trying to realistically predict what's going to happen a couple of weeks out from a mock draft is out of their minds and will get like one pick right. That's the sort of standard here.
I mean, like legitimately 5 or 6.
Yeah, like the best mocks in those grading things that you keep getting thrown on get like 4 or 5.
Have I mentioned how frustrated I've been with that in the past?
A little bit, yeah.
I don't know if I put that on the show or not.
Oh, no, you did.
But like I very specifically do not do predictive mock drafts. I simply do like, hey, Steve's the GM. Here's what Steve would do all the time. And then they just drop me at the end of all the predictive mock draft contests like and all that stuff. And it's like, I didn't put people in the first round who I know are going in the first round because I wouldn't draft them in the first round.
I mean, I just think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing it this year. So I'm not doing a final mock, and I won't be a part of those contests. I won't be tagged the day after the draft with like the trash score or whatever I have. And people think it's serious. All right, well, let's get into it. So you start with you had the Jaguars picking first here in your mock draft. That's good.
Yes, I didn't do trades on the basis that would have complicated putting the grade on the thing.
Yeah.
So I just didn't do it.
So let's go. You got Aidan Hutchinson going number 1. By the way, check out the Hutch documentary over here on YouTube or wherever you're listening to us in podcast world. Just search Hutch. And Hutchinson's going number 1. There's not much to discuss there. We're pretty on board with that happening. And
other than
that.
This Trayvon Walker thing is getting noisier in terms of number 1. I do think Hutchinson's still the pick. It just makes too much sense. I mean, come on, we would have to deviate a lot from like normality and what is the biggest chance of anything happening to shoot for the long shot and go in a different direction.
Yeah. So Hutchinson number 1. This is something that's come up in some of our recent mock drafts. You go Kayvon Thibodeau, number 2. I think you did that when we went back and forth last week, right? Thibodeau, the Oregon edge defender, goes to the Detroit Lions. And then you have Trayvon Walker going number 3 to the Houston Texans. So it's edge.
Yep.
To start the draft, which, to be honest, in this draft of uncertainty and a lack of high-end quarterback talent, doesn't feel like a crazy thing that could happen.
No.
Where teams feel good about getting those edge defenders up.
I haven't seen it happen that much in mock drafts. And what it does, it creates some really interesting picks later on when all of a sudden, teams are sitting there on the board with like all of the top tackles available to pick, those kinds of things. And so all of a sudden I think you start to see random guys slide, and it has this domino effect, the butterfly effect of guys being available way lower down the draft than you would expect them to be because teams started off edge 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and so I think the Texans were the first team when I heard the Trayvon Walker buzz. Like, I'm not buying into the Jags. I don't think I'm buying into the Lions maybe at 2. The Texans felt like the first team that I was kind of buying into as far as maybe Trayvon Walker is going to go that high.
Yeah.
At number 3. Texans, of course, have 2 of those draft picks. You hear me say it all over and over again. I think if you do have 2 draft picks, I'd be more willing to maybe take some upside type of gambles or whatever it might be. And look, the Texans have Nick Caserio as GM, coming straight from the Bill Belichick line. And I think anytime Bill Belichick has a first-round pick, you really don't know what he's going to do. It's very tough to predict. Anytime the Seahawks have a first-round pick, it's tough to predict. And I think the Texans going Trayvon Walker, I think that would have been tough to predict, a month ago, a few weeks back. And it's becoming more of a reality that Walker could be a top 5 player, but that's definitely something I could see the Texans doing there.
Did you see that thing that was tweeted about? It was from Sloan of Nick Caserio talking about the perception that length is a requisite trait for success at a certain position. And then was sort of mentioning a study that concluded there was no correlation whatsoever, but he didn't tell anybody what the position was, and people were speculating it was cornerback. I wonder if it's actually edge.
I mean, it could be tackle too.
Also that.
So here's the thing about that study. It completely depends on which Joe Thomas measurement you're using.
Yes.
Because if you're looking at an offensive tackle and you're like, well, Joe Thomas has 32.5-inch arms, he's going to skew all the perception.
Yeah. It also depends, these things are always interesting because, what's your measurement of success?
That's
playing time, because that's not success.
That's my point. I think most of these generally look at Pro Bowlers and All-Pro players.
Right.
That'd be my
Pro Bowl for a start. A Pro Bowl is a farce, so that's not a great measure.
It is. That's one of the places where I'm trying to change the game a little bit on the team side. What?
So I'm sorry, that just sounded tremendously pretentious. This is one of the areas I'm trying to change the game.
Oh yeah, let me bring that back.
Tell me more about how you're trying to change pretentious.
The game. I'm trying to bring awareness to. I'm trying to raise awareness that maybe defining success, there are better ways to do it. I do think the PFF WAR metric does a good job because when you look at WAR, it does point to actual NFL wins. So when we do discuss our PFF IQ, our team-centric product behind the scenes here, we do talk about that and think, in figuring out, okay, what if we use WAR as a baseline for success and kind of work backwards from that, just because WAR generally leads to more wins. Mm-hmm. So that you're not just saying, did this guy start? Did this guy make the Pro Bowl? Which again, you counting Mitch Trubisky's Pro Bowl? Like Mitch Trubisky has more Pro Bowls than who was it?
I mean, he has more Pro Bowls than Mitchell Schwartz.
So if you rank Pro Bowls in, say, the AFC North, including Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow's last, right? Like you've got Mitch Trubisky 1, Joe Burrow 0, something like that. I think somebody showed. So just Pro Bowls are all over the place. But I think you could. I am curious about the success thing. Sorry. Yeah, I wasn't trying to sound pretentious.
Oh no, I
rolled right into it naturally.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
Just pull up a chair and let me tell you a little bit about how I'm trying to change the game.
Listen, NFL execs, if you want to hear more, just email me. You'll find my email. Yeah, so where are we going with this here? So the length thing, you think it was maybe edge?
I think it could be edge. Tackle's a good call as well. I'm not convinced it's corner was the thing. Everyone's like, oh, I bet it's corner. That's the one position I think it might not actually. It probably isn't.
Okay, let me check
my
numbers.
Anything else, I think there is quite a strong correlation between length and cornerback success.
Let me check out my numbers really quick.
Okay.
So why did everybody assume corner?
People just assumed. People assume things. They make an ass out of you and me.
They do. No, I
don't
have my edge numbers updated here. But yeah, honestly, there's not a high direct.
Tackle's a good call because I can think of a bunch of terrible tackles with long arms.
Now, but here's the thing with studies. I think teams have been doing studies like this forever. And some of the studies that they've come up with that I've heard, it's like, well, the first round running back is a really good investment because they have X amount of production. They always get 1,000 yards. They always get this and that. And they usually, a lot of people running these studies fail to miss the context of it's easy to justify your first round running back if you're looking at production because you're going to feed him the football, right? You're going to hand it off to him. He's going to get a lot of numbers. The same thing, there is selection bias with short-armed offensive tackles, right? There is, if you have a Rashawn Slater or whoever it is, they're usually so good at everything else. So let's say Joe Thomas does have 32.5-inch arms. They're usually so good at everything else that it doesn't matter that they have 32.5-inch arms. So you do have to parse that out when you're doing these studies. Do I have anything on my quick glance at arm length here. Let me expand this out really for tackles. There's not much of a correlation here either, just in a vacuum. So
yeah, there's no real point to that other than it potentially means that the Houston Texans are not necessarily doing things the way people assume they would, which is just grab, the athletic freak specimen, coach him up, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they are willing to go for a guy that has a slightly unusual profile, measurable profile.
All right, so you're going edge
Yep.
to start the mock draft. Remember, you can follow along at pff.com. It's Sam's most recent mock draft. Is this your final mock draft?
Maybe, probably,
Yeah,
possibly.
probably.
Who knows?
So number 4, we're going for the New York Jets, cornerback Sauce Gardner to Cincinnati.
From like mock drafting and general, all this, the process, right? The two most agitated and annoyed fan bases just across the board, no matter what you do for them, no matter what pick you give them, which player, are the Jets and the Titans. There isn't a pick you can give either of those two teams that won't piss people off.
Titans are just still bitter. We forgot about them.
I mean, possibly.
Oh, they're definitely mad about your pick here.
Yeah. I've already had tweets, and the Jets fans are pissed because quote. Let me quote this one. It's a good one. This is just lazy mock drafting.
Lazy.
If they follow the tea leaves, they know that the Jets are going pass rush at 4. Even if all 3 edges are off the board, they're going pass rush at 4. You lazy jackass.
If you're on Jets Reddit, as I am, you will know the tea leaves. Yeah, I mean, look, the draft could change. You had 3 edges go, so they're probably not going edge.
I mean, look,
the
if you
fourth.
read the tea leaves, you know.
So who's it? Jermaine Johnson? Is that what the Jets fan wants? So here's the thing. If you're one of those Jets fans or you're one of those Titans fans, here's what we've decided. The Thursday of the draft, when we usually record, it's Thursday at 10:30 Eastern. That's going to be our fan-driven mock. Now, I don't think we're going to be able to set it up so we have one per team and all that stuff. I did get a bunch of requests that people saying, hey, I can mock for this team and I can mock for this team. I think it's going to be a little difficult for us to pull all that together. But I just want people in the live YouTube chat. We'll throw a poll out there and we'll see who wins the poll so we can all be a part of it. But it's usually that we'll do it that Thursday of the draft. And that'll be our fan mock draft. So if you're upset with Sam's number 4 overall pick here, Jets fans, of Sauce Gardner, which I like a lot, 31.8 passer rating thrown into his coverage, a lot of production. The guy, looked like he passed all the interviews, passed the speed test, passed the length test, all the stuff here. He ticked every box this offseason. It's not crazy to think that Sauce Gardner is going to be the number 1 corner off the board, even as 1 year, even compared to Derek Stingley, who looked like a generational type of cornerback prospect at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to sound more and more like that's just going to happen. That Sauce Gardner is the number 1 corner on people's boards now, not Stingley. Stingley is now relying on he's gone from everybody would love Derek Stingley. That dude's amazing, generational, best season we've seen, freshman, all this kind of stuff. To now he needs the one team that's willing to overlook 2 years and take a chance on that year. The 2019 season, he actually he's waiting for the first team to go. Yeah, all right. I don't care about the next 2 years. I'm going to grab that guy because the upside is huge, as opposed to Sauce Gardner, where most people seem to be perfectly happy with his entire profile, even though Sauce Gardner excels at the area of the game that's becoming less and less prevalent for cornerbacks. This sort of skill set, that classic press man.
You say Stingley?
No, Sauce.
Sauce. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That classic press man type of style, it's happening less and less now. Teams are playing less of that than they ever have before.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but at the same time, I think if you have a guy like Sauce Gardner, you're gonna, even if you're playing cover 2, you still have to get your hands on, receivers and all that stuff. There's still value. Plus, I like to call it zone length, Sam. When you have zone length, you're compressing those passing lanes and
Zone length.
Zone length, yeah. You got to have some more. You need more draft terms. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You need more draft terms.
Made
Renner
up
and I
ones
used
or
to
real
make those
ones?
up every year. Yeah. Tackle radius was a good one that we came up with. Guys with a large tackle radius. It's important.
Yeah.
So Sauce Gardner to the Jets at number 4. The mock draft sim said it was an A-, so I'll go with our simulator grade over the couple of Jets fans that keep pestering you.
The mock draft sim likes most of the early picks. Doesn't love, Trayvon Walker because lack of production, blah, blah, blah. But, we understand it. B- for that one. But otherwise, we're all in the A territory.
Well, let's discuss the 2 Giants picks, and then we'll circle back to the Panthers. So you have the Giants at 5 taking Ike Ekwonu, the tackle out of NC State. Mock draft sim gives you an A. And then the sim gives you a C. I haven't seen this one yet. The Giants at 7, taking Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah, breaking all Giants protocols since the 80s, drafting a first-round linebacker here.
So this is one of those picks, I think. This is one of the dominoes that falls, one of the effects of the butterfly flapping its wings with those first 3 edges is in most mock drafts you're going to see the Giants, I think, picking an edge with one of these top picks, right? They're the team that stops the slide of Kayvon Thibodeau or whatever. But if all those guys are off the board and they grab a tackle with their first pick, Ike Ekwonu, again, tackles are starting to slide, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, where do the Giants go with this next pick? And they're probably not going to grab a wide receiver given how much money they already have tied up in that position. They're probably not taking a quarterback given the current status. They just grabbed an offensive lineman. Like, what are you doing? Okay, you could grab Kyle Hamilton, you could grab a cornerback, but Sauce is already gone, so are you the team that wants to take the chance on Derek Stingley? I just think there's a very real chance this is a out-of-left-field type of pick, and Devin Lloyd's stock does appear to be going up and up and up the closer to the draft we get. He is this modern prototype of the linebacker position. The guy looks like Darius Leonard out there in terms of length, range, size, plays everything well. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I hate myself for using the word safe for Devin Lloyd last week when we were doing the mock draft because I usually rail against those who call linebackers safe. You know, the old Aaron Curry draft pick for the Seattle Seahawks, number 4 overall in 2009, I believe it was. Because I think most people used to say, well, linebackers are safe because you could justify it, right? They get 100 tackles because they'd be out there again, not necessarily using the right KPIs, so to speak. But Devin Lloyd, in my model here, Sam, my change the game model, he ticks a lot of boxes as far as projecting as at least having a good to elite career. And those include things like just his college production, the way he plays the run. I do love the way he plays zone as a coverage defender. He does a lot of things really well. I think there is safety in Devin Lloyd. The prospect, I'm not defaulting to linebackers are safe because I'll justify them with 100 tackles, just for clarification there. But at number 7, I see the realism there too, right? You always kind of get this random linebacker or a random safety that kind of jumps into the top 10 that you may not have predicted. I could see Lloyd being that guy. It doesn't feel great, I don't think, if you're a Giants fan, because there are other, the fences can be swung for there, right?
But again, this is way, when teams do what I'm assuming a lot of these people do when they rip your pick, which is just scroll down to that pick and be like, no way that team drafts this player at this position, idiot. You're like, well, you have to look at what happened in the previous picks. Right. So that whole thing of edge rushers going 1, 2, 3 immediately changes the rest of the draft, because players that you expected to be there are not, and players that you didn't expect to be there are all of a sudden there. So if the Giants do pick up an offensive lineman with their first pick at 5, unless they, A, trade down, entirely possible if they could do that, B, like if they double dipped on the offensive line, which is unlikely given that, Andrew Thomas is there as a first-round left tackle, there aren't that many places for them to go with this pick.
Yeah, and look, we already have people in the YouTube comments suggesting that the Giants trade down. Yeah, sure. I mean, you're not doing that in this particular mock. I would love to see the Giants. I mean, if I'm a Giants fan, would love to see them trade down.
And trading down, again, is always like, well, who's coming up?
Who's coming up, yep.
Right? And, okay, in this scenario, the tackles are starting to slide, so maybe teams would jump up for one of them. A team looking for a wide receiver would still have their choice at this point. It's possible, but it's not all, it's – yes, a lot of teams would love to trade down at any given opportunity, but the offer isn't always there.
All right, before we get into what the Panthers did at number 6.
What did you do?
You've got all we're talking about is fresh pickups, but the only true guaranteed quality pickup this season is Manscaped.
It's a trickier transition than you think it is. I took a couple of swings at it when you weren't here, and
I was going to say, I didn't hear how well your segues were there, but
I had one, I think, that was the chalkboard. When they draw up the play on the chalkboard and it looks perfect, it's going to work. The chalkboard play was perfect, and then I butchered the execution.
Yeah. I mean, you're always sitting there as the passenger laughing at me when I screw it up.
Uh-huh.
You don't realize how tough it is in the captain's chair.
I know.
Yeah. Because the only true guaranteed quality pickup this season is Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. With Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, your skill position will be sleek and smooth enough to run a sub 4.3 40. Support us and head to manscaped.com. Use the exclusive code PFF at checkout, and you get 20% off plus free shipping. Because of their ceramic blade and skin-safe technology, your nicks and snags will be reduced. In the season of trimming that roster, Manscaped will make sure that you're cutting the right players and not any important pieces to your D. Look, fellas, don't fall off our draft board. The ladies out there think long nose hair is a major turnoff. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer is your solution. Why not use the best tools for the job here? April is draft season, and it is also Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. Manscaped has partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. It's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code PFF. Turn your Mr. Irrelevant to a first-round pick with Manscaped. All right, so you're going Kenny Pickett, number 6 here to the Carolina Panthers. This is your reading the room, reading the buzz, and reacting accordingly. You do believe that the Panthers are in.
Can't stress enough how much I would not do this if it was me. But the
Mock Draft Sim also gave you an F because we don't have him highly ranked on the board.
The Panthers, I think, may well be doing this. And yes, the Mock Draft Sim, despite the Mock Draft Sim loving quarterbacks as a general rule, hates drafting Kenny Pickett at 6 overall. And, you know, you can understand why. Kenny Pickett's not that good. He's got like a second-round grade on our board, on the big board. Comfortably second round. He has flaws to his game, significant ones. Yes, he's accurate. The end. You know, that's about it. We're talking about a guy who is accurate, who had a great season last year, who's big enough, athletic enough, arms good enough, teeny tiny hands, needs the gloves. Some real problems with how he manipulates and manages the pocket. Doesn't have a good pocket presence at all. When that presence breaks down, he immediately drops his eyes and tries to make a play on the ground, which leaves a lot on the table athletically, and that's in the pass game, and that's even assuming he's athletically capable enough to do that at the next level, as opposed to becoming, you know, the next Christian Ponder. So there's a lot of concern there. And
what does he do well, though? I mean, this is – so I'm trying to – I feel
he's
like –
accurate. He's accurate. He delivers the ball to the middle of the field well, in particular.
He's got a few off out-of-structure plays.
Yeah, he's got a good enough arm, and he's athletic enough to make plays. But these are all at the college level. It's a kind of question about whether that still holds at the next level. Because, you know, if he was doing that and he runs a 4.3, it's like, oh, fine, that works at the next level as well. But he doesn't. He's athletic enough, which puts him in that gray area of does that work or not at the next level? Because essentially in that same broad bucket of athleticism, you have Christian Ponder and Patrick Mahomes, right? One guy who can't do any of that at the next level and one guy who can do it all. Or which is he? Or where is he on that spectrum? We don't know yet, and we're not going to know until he gets out there and starts trying to do it against NFL defensive ends.
We talk a lot about spectrums based off of style, right? Where it's like, all right, here are a bunch of guys. We did this with Justin Fields last year, right? And I would describe, here are a bunch of guys who are very accurate when they throw the football, but also probably take way too many negative plays and don't deliver the ball quickly enough, statistically, right? That was Justin Fields. And then when you project that to the NFL, you could come up with guys like Aaron Rodgers, like Russell Wilson, but you could also come up with guys like Ryan Tannehill, and then a whole bunch of guys who are not that good historically. But, you know, Tannehill was kind of my Justin Fields comp, right? Kind of holds onto the ball, takes too many sacks, but when he throws it, it's beautiful. So Fields and Tannehill on that spectrum. With Pickett, he reminds me a little bit of Cody Kessler style, right? A guy that should, and Alex Smith, and it's not because of, I mean, it's like you don't have elite arm strength. You have to win with your mind and processing and getting rid of the ball quickly, but you don't always do it. Now, Alex Smith was a much better player than, say, Cody Kessler. Similar styled players, right? When they threw it, it was accurate. It didn't have the best velocity, but it was accurate. But Cody Kessler had far too many plays where he held onto the ball way too long. And I think Pickett has some of that to his game. I can't think of other guys that
honestly,
are along those lines.
Stylistically, he plays the game a lot like Joe Burrow if everything Burrow did was worse.
Yeah.
Right? So his positives are the same as Burrow's. It's accuracy, it's general, it's processing, it's getting the ball where it needs to go. He makes good plays out of structure. These are all things Joe Burrow does. He's not as accurate as Joe Burrow. He's not as good, simply, as Joe Burrow. And then if you look at Burrow's negative side of the ledger, certainly year one, like what was his biggest problem? It was holding onto the ball too long and causing some of your own problems behind an offensive line that was already garbage and going to be getting you killed, right? Now, he's gotten slightly better at that already, but that's still his biggest weakness, is you hold on to the ball too long. And that's, that becomes a bigger problem the worse your offensive line is. Pickett is worse at that than Burrow is, and that was Burrow's biggest problem. So I'm not sure people are sort of appreciating just how off the scale Kenny Pickett holds the ball. Like, that dude was averaging 3.2 seconds per play at the college level. Even if you strip out the scrambling around and the run thing, the run plays and all that kind of stuff, he's still he's at the kind of level where all of the quarterbacks around him are running quarterbacks. They're athletic guys that run around, and that's how they're going to make their bones at any level, college or pros. He is almost certainly not in that category. He's just not that athletic. So he is playing the game with a style that is almost certainly not going to function at the next level. So if you're taking him at 6, you're taking him with the idea of, okay, not only is he starting day 1 because we need him to, but in the space of a few weeks of training camp, we are going to get that away from him and teach him to operate within a pocket and get the ball out of his hands kind of a second faster on average. That feels...
Those are the same concerns that we had with Zach Wilson during his rookie season. I mean, when we reviewed Jets games all throughout the year, we would say, look, Zach Wilson's average time to throw was 3.
Yes,
which
is A, faster than Pickett right now, and B, at a higher level.
But I'm just saying, there were games where he was up at 3 without an average depth of target, without the triggers that get you to 3, right? Without scrambling around, and without throwing the ball down the field, which was generally a concern for Zach Wilson.
But it's a perfect encapsulation of what we're talking about, right? That the longest average times to throw in the NFL last season, Jalen Hurts, right? Exactly who you think it would be. 3.2 seconds. Jameis, 3.1 seconds. Lamar Jackson, 3.1 seconds. Justin Fields, 3.1. And then Zach Wilson, 3.05. Now, number one, every single one of those times is lower than Kenny Pickett's average, right? And generally, young quarterbacks coming to the NFL, the number goes up. The processing thing, the speed of the NFL game, where that manifests itself is those guys process and act slower. So if Kenny Pickett is already averaging the slowest average time to throw in the NFL, and then you factor that number going up because he's coming into the NFL where the game is faster and his processing slows down by comparison, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and the counterpoint might be, hey, last year he had 8 touchdowns in 2020. He had 5 on the ground last year. He did have some productive runs. He only had his career high as a runner, though, 67 PFF grade. And again, athleticism-wise, he's not. I mean, he could pick up first downs as a scrambler, but that's got to be an auxiliary part of his game.
Right, but he now need if you're going to survive at that level, you now need to be Jalen Hurts, right? Which is can you bring 800 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground? Probably not.
My bigger concern here with Pickett, previous high PFF grade was in 2019, 75 overall. He was a 70 overall in 2020. He does break out to the 92.2. So the question, hey, why don't you trust your elite PFF grade that he had there? I think the overall body of work is a big question, and how do you weigh this? He was in his 5th year starting football games for Pittsburgh, 4th full season, and he finally broke out. So does that mean he has it? Is he just a one-year wonder? Is that more of a concern or a positive trait for Kenny Pickett? The other one-year wonders that have had success in recent years are guys like Kyler Murray, who was sitting behind Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, his baseline was higher before his incredible breakout, right? Mitch Trubisky broke out. Rest in peace. Dwayne Haskins had a one-year breakout at Ohio State. A lot of those guys were behind other quarterbacks at that point.
And also, last year in the NFL, the only 2 quarterbacks to rank inside the top 20 in PFF grade and have a time to throw above 2.8 seconds are Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. You have to play the game as a freak if you're going to survive with that style of play. And that's what Kenny Pickett is up against. If you're going to play with that style of play and hold the ball that freaking long, you need to be bringing something absurdly special to the table. And right now, there isn't really a lot of evidence that he is, at which point, if you're Carolina, you're drafting him at 6, you're throwing him out there to the Wolves, I don't see a way that goes particularly well unless they significantly change how he plays the game in a very short period of time.
Well, I can't wait. Draft's less than 2 weeks away here, Sam. We'll get answers to all of these questions. Pickett at number 6 in your mock to the Panthers. I mentioned Devin Lloyd going number 7 to the New York Giants. Puts the Falcons up on the clock at 8, and you're going, hey, your top wide receiver on the board, Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think, at this point, you're in this position where Atlanta gets their pick of all the wide receivers at number 8. I think that's a good spot for them to be. I think they probably would go in that direction. There are people out there that are not going to have Garrett Wilson as their number 1 wide receiver. That's fine. But I think the majority of people would have Garrett Wilson as their number 1 wide receiver simply because he is the best composite of all of the skills. He's got speed. He's better at the catch point than you would think he is given his size. He's got run after the catch ability, even if he's not amazing at that. He's good at everything. And I think people undersell how important that is or where the ceiling of that is. Like, Stephon Diggs is also good at everything, Just because you're that sort of good at everything thing doesn't simply mean you're a jack of all trades. You're never going to be elite. That is a ceiling for a guy like that.
So Wilson to the Falcons. Look, we know that they've got a lot of work to do across the roster. Receiver is now probably their biggest non-quarterback need anyway. So I like this fit for Wilson to the Falcons here. You put the Seahawks at 9 and pairing them with Malik Willis. This was one of my favorites. I'm not saying I'm just saying. Since they moved up at 9, I was thinking this might be one of their best case scenarios, I think, if you're a Seahawks fan. Getting Malik Willis out of Liberty.
Yeah. At this point,
Baker's interested, though, in Seattle, he said, right?
Good for Baker.
Just saying.
I don't think Seattle's too interested in Baker, unfortunately.
They should be.
If you're Seattle and I think the Panthers taking Kenny Pickett at 6 would be fantastic for Seattle.
Sure.
And in fact, every other team basically in the NFL is looking at that and applauding that move. For Seattle, it's because it takes a quarterback off the board that I doubt would be your number 1 quarterback and puts a guy like Malik Willis into play for you. So essentially, Seattle gets to do a quarterback what the Falcons did at wide receiver, which is have their pick minus Kenny Pickett. If Malik Willis gets past Detroit at 2, which I think is still a possibility, I don't think that the Panthers are going to hitch their wagon to Malik Willis, at which point he's a pretty good chance he makes it as far as Seattle at 9. And I don't know why you wouldn't take him at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like that pick for Seattle. My only question is, do they end up just trying to load up the rest of the roster? I feel like they've got the same question everyone else does, right? The Falcons and some of the other teams that might need a quarterback, other than maybe the Panthers, who are at this point of probably desperation at the position. Do the Seahawks build the roster first, build it back up before they make that quarterback investment? But I like Malik Willis at 9 there. How do the Jets fans feel about number 10 here? Jamison Williams out of Alabama. So now your number 3 receiver becomes the second receiver off the board here with the Jets, making the Jets 2 picks. Sauce Gardner at corner, Jamison Williams at receiver. Have to say, I do love this fit. I love Jamison Williams' fit with everybody. But it's when you stack up his very specific skill set of initial burst, second gear type of burst, and then you just throw that into the receiving core, which includes Elijah Moore, Corey Davis. I mean, I like that.
Yeah.
A lot of complementary pieces now for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Jamison Williams, he has that skill set that fits anywhere, right? I mean, I described him in this mock as a healthy version of Will Fuller, who, even if you look at Will Fuller's production, you're like, that's kind of average. Will Fuller's impact was always felt way beyond his individual production. It was like what he does to coverages on any given play, just simply by being out there. He changes how teams have to play the coverage, because you can't just line up with a dude on an island against Will Fuller who doesn't have enough speed or technique to live with him and ignore it. You have to have a coverage that gives you the capacity to lean some help towards that corner every play. And if you don't, boom, touchdown. So Jamison Williams has the kind of speed that will do the same thing. And that makes everybody better. It doesn't just allow Corey Davis to become like a number 2 and Elijah Moore to operate and those kinds of things. It changes the coverage those guys are seeing. So not only is Corey Davis, able to take more of a back seat and not be the number 1 guy in the offense, but he also has coverages that are different. He's not facing, bracket coverage and tighter attention from defensive backs. He has more space to work in, which makes him better. So I mean, this is a pick I think that makes sense for any offense, but in particular the Jets, who were trying to surround Zach Wilson with enough playmakers.
Okay, this next pick is a controversial one.
Controversial.
Anytime you don't pick a need, Sam,
Yeah.
the people get upset.
They do.
And I am a BPA for life, right? Best player
You never put that on a T-shirt.
available. We should, right? BPA for life.
Oh, yeah.
I have the old shirt, draft good players. But I've changed a little bit. It's not a blind BPA, as we had that heated debate a few weeks back about Tyler Linderbaum with no
Right.
path to the field.
BPA for life right up until you don't like it.
Here's the thing. You draft the best players at the most valuable positions. I mean, that's ultimately the strategy. Now you look, so this is the Washington Commanders select Evan Neal, Alabama tackle. The mock draft sim gives it an A.
Yeah, that's all
But
I
that
need.
has nothing to do, it doesn't look at the Washington depth chart. There needs to be, when you have a first round player, there does need to be a path to the field, I think. So here's what I'll ask you. If you draft Evan Neal, here's the current depth chart in the situation in Washington. You have Charles Leno at left tackle coming off an excellent season. You had 3 players who were average to very good all 5 players along the offensive line, average to very good last season. Charles Leno at left tackle. You have Samuel Cosmi, second-round pick last year, who had a very good rookie year. Both of those guys are under contract for the next 3 seasons at tackle. So then we kick Evan Neal into guard. You have Wes Schweitzer. He's got 1 year left at right guard. Andrew Norwell, he's got 2 years left at left guard. So where are you playing Evan Neal in this mix here?
Let me answer firstly by saying I don't care, right? The strategy behind this pick is it doesn't matter. You take the best player because he's incredible value at this point in the draft, and you say, we got lucky. This guy landed in our laps, and we'll figure out where to play him later. So they grab him right now, and then you look, okay, now where are we playing him? We're not going to bench Charles Leno. We just gave him money. He's been good. We're probably not benching Samuel Cosmi. He looked good as year one, and he's a steal if he works out well because of where we drafted him. So you're playing him a guard somewhere, at which point, let him battle it out for either guard spot. He'll win one of them, job done.
That's it?
Yeah.
So
and then look, he's contingency if Samuel Cosmi doesn't kick on in year 2, and it was a flash in the pan, you end up needing him at right tackle, whatever it is. But the whole point about picks like this is we thought if you're Washington, it's like Washington had Evan Neal number 1 on their board, and Evan Neal is suddenly available number 11 overall. You're like, jackpot, pick it, and we'll figure out what to do with it later on.
My only pushback to that, though, is every team building decision is based off of the fact that you have limited resources, whether it's draft capital, finances, whatever it might be, and you're trying to you do want to maximize playing time. So you don't want a Charles Leno or Samuel Cosmi on the bench, given the investment that you made in those guys. Maybe Schweitzer at right guard, but then you're sitting there saying, okay, I'm drafting a guard at 11 who eventually is going to kick out to tackle. Just saying, it's not.
But there's literally,
as a BPA for life guy, it's not always that simple. I do think you need to factor in your resources. I've changed my tune through the years, though, to nobody on my current depth chart is going to keep me from getting a great player. So maybe I'm contradicting that a little bit, but at the same time, I want to be able to get this guy on the field.
Yeah, but there's literally no downside to picking an amazing player who ends up forcing somebody that you thought was good to the bench, because you can still trade away somebody, right? So let's say you're Washington, you bring in Evan Neal. Evan Neal in training camp looks freaking amazing. The dude looks phenomenal. You end up going, we can't have him starting either on the bench at the start of the season or even a guard. It's a waste of everybody's time and resource. So sorry, Samuel, you've done nothing wrong. You're taking a seat in the bench. You're going to play a guard or whatever, right? Either you end up putting Evan Neal at tackle, he's amazing, everything's great, and Cosmi battles for guard, or Cosmi ends up going to the bench, you trade Cosmi away, and you get a second-round pick back for him because he looked good year 1. Whatever. You're not going to lose out by stumbling into an amazing player.
The trading of a Samuel Cosmi or a Charles Leno, I can get behind. You find another tackle-needy team or whatever it is. It's just you have to deal with dead money issues and all that stuff, which you don't necessarily want to
Right, and that's why all things being equal, obviously you wouldn't take a tackle with this pick. But the whole point is all things are not equal because you're grabbing a guy that in theory you think is way better than where he's landed, and you're picking value.
Look, that part I agree with is the fact that once you draft a good player, the residual effect on the rest of your roster, you can kind of make it work, recoup draft picks in other places. So Evan Neal going to the Commanders at 11. That's one of the bigger surprises, I think, of your mock. Minnesota Vikings getting cornerback Derek Stingley at 12.
Yeah, and again, by the way, another one of those ripple effects of edge going 1, 2, 3. Like Evan Neal is a guy that's supposed to be gone in the top 5, 6 picks somewhere.
Yeah.
All of a sudden winds up sitting there at 11 overall, and a team like Washington's like, this isn't expected, but we have to do it. He's too good.
The one thing the places historically where I have loved non-need picks, say, the Giants selected Jason Pierre-Paul when they already had Strahan and Umanura, I think, or was it the next group of either? I know they had 2 starting pass rushers, and they drafted Jason Pierre-Paul because it's like, all right, you can put 3 on the field and use them.
Yeah.
When the Vikings drafted Randy Moss, on paper it's like, well, you have Chris Carter, who's one of the league's best. You have Jake Reed, who's one of the best number 2s in the NFL. You don't need Randy Moss, but Randy Moss is special. Plus, you could also play all 3. I think it's harder to swallow a tackle when you already have 2 tackles. You already have 2 pretty good guards. It's not as easy to play all 3.
Yeah, sure. It's always easier to bring in a guy who doesn't necessarily start, but is part of a position group that features a rotation, because automatically you can play more than 2 of them at any given moment.
All right, this next one I do think might be a dream scenario for the Vikings, though. Derek Stingley, once a generational-looking cornerback prospect who comes with question marks now because of injuries and a drop-off in play, but you do see the potential there. You see what he's capable of. You're picking at number 12. You've got this now annual need just to get youth, successful young players at corner. So I think I like this a lot for the Vikings.
Yeah, it was a move. I mean, the mock draft sim gives it an A+, and this was one of those things where it was difficult to get the mock sim to actually produce this pick in order to get the grade. You have to keep running the mock to find a mock where Derek Stingley falls to number 12 because he's gone before this happens almost every single time. I do think that it's more likely than it should be that Derek Stingley ends up sliding down this draft a little bit. But you're right. A team like Minnesota just makes so much sense to stop that fall because they do need cornerbacks. They have that LSU connection with Patrick Peterson coming back to offer some kind of mentorship or whatever to Stingley there. And we have seen that incredible elite season from him. And while, Renner was talking about it a little bit of where those the pro day things that he did, right? Where it's like he looked like he wasn't even doing it. He barely looked like he'd never been told how to do any of this stuff, and yet still posted high-end numbers for his position. That shows what kind of athlete we're talking about here. So incredible athlete, dude who's got elite play at cornerback as a freshman. And then, these are 2 things. These have him in the top 5. These make him the best overall prospect in the draft. And then what drags that down is the last 2 years of injury and not great play. So how do you balance those things? And if you're a team like Minnesota who they haven't hit the reset button, but they're trying to change in some way the stagnation that's happened to the roster over the last couple of years. I mean, one thing that could change it in a massive way is rediscovering 2019 Derek Stingley.
Yeah, for sure. And look, how do you weigh those jumps where it didn't look like he was trying? Well, the fact that he put up good numbers, that's really what you want to come away with, right? Like, this guy's an incredible athlete. That's what he is. He looks like it on film with there were times as a freshman he was making it look easy as far as breaking up passes and just being in phase with really good receivers. So, there's a bit of a concern that it didn't look like he was trying or prepared for some of the jumps. On the other hand, the fact that he still did well, it's like, all you're trying to gauge is the actual on-field athleticism. I think you saw that with bad technique. So, Stingley at 12, I'm back on board with Stingley and Sauce as 1A, 1B at cornerback. I do think there's a bit of a drop-off between those 2 guys as prospects. So I'd be thrilled with getting Stingley at number 12. Probably would have taken him at 11 if I was Washington as well.
No, That's you can do that in your mock draft.
I will do that in my mock draft whenever I get an opportunity. Back to number 13, the Houston Texans, the pick they get from the Cleveland Browns in the Deshaun Watson trade. You're going Kyle Hamilton here, another guy I mean, think back. Look at these last 3 picks here, Sam. Evan Neal, Derek Stingley, Kyle Hamilton. All of these guys were top 5 locks, at least in PFF mocks, just a month or 2 ago. And I think the Evan Neal fall is more just the way you structured the mock draft. But Stingley falling because of question marks and Kyle Hamilton falling because of uneven runs at pro days. You could get some good players here.
So I have Houston halting the slide from Kyle Hamilton. If Hamilton doesn't get selected at this spot by Houston, he could be in for a Derwin James, the player, hashtag number 33.
Wow.
Quick.
That Chargers player. Cut that.
Bleep it.
Cut that out.
He could be in for a slide like that, where he ends up, a potential, like a top 5 talent ends up getting drafted. I mean, he could slide 21, the Patriots. Like, that's as far as he might end up. Because look at the teams between Houston at 13 and New England at 21. I don't know if any of those teams are grabbing a safety. Now, okay, it's like Washington, right? At some point, somebody's going to pick him for value. But unlike, he is coming with like a 4.7 40. There are teams that are not going to want that. So Hamilton becomes
it's not a 4.7.
It kind of is. It was 4.59 at the combine, and then people said it was a 4.7 at his pro day.
So it's a 4.59. You judge the guys by their best.
I'll
tell you who would not.
By your one crusty scout that had it at a 4.7 in person at his pro day. That's the important number.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just saying. So a guy that plays safety. So immediately we've got like position value problems. Now you've got 4.7. And then like there's a lot of reasons for teams to be like, I'm not taking that risk. So if Houston doesn't do it at 13, and in this mock they did, he could be in for a real slide down that first round.
First off, the fact that the player fell the way he did was absurd. And that was coming off
but it happened.
A lot of reports that he had a bad pro day that wasn't necessarily, that was more like interview stuff and whatever it was, but people are ridiculous. They missed on that guy. I'll tell you what, though, if he gets to the Chargers at 17, they could draft Kyle Hamilton and pair him with a player. They could cash in on another dropping safety. They have Nasir Adderley there, which he's been okay. He hasn't really been great for the Chargers. I could absolutely see Hamilton be in there because they're in a pretty good position where the Chargers don't have massive needs. But I don't know if I agree with Hamilton could keep sliding because he feels like the player where no matter what you have at safety, you can find a way to squeeze that skill set.
Yeah, and if he didn't run a 4.7, you might be more inclined to do that. But because he did, I don't know how many teams are going to want to jump into that.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere else, I mentioned this on the other podcast, the way we analyze athleticism and map it to grades, taking their best number, by the way, as part of that equation. I've seen other athletic metrics that the overall workout numbers from Kyle Hamilton far more positive than negative. I don't think it's going to really affect him. It does. I will say, though, like what did Earl Thomas run? 4.3 something? Like a high 4.38 or whatever it was? When you're trying to justify a safety in the top 10,
yes,
you want the speed box absolutely to be ticked, and you just don't have that from Hamilton. So the fact that he could be somewhere in that 10 to 20 range, I do think is realistic. This now gives the Texans Kyle Hamilton at 13, the Notre Dame safety, and Trayvon Walker, the edge at Georgia. Say what you want about Hamilton's 40 times, but that's adding a lot of athleticism to the team because Hamilton has great game speed and range.
They're almost, I mean, they're from two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? On the Trayvon Walker, you've got this guy who is athletically about as picture perfect as you could possibly paint a prospect. Like if you were asking an NFL team to go into a lab and mess with the sliders, create a player on Madden, like what would the athletic profile be? They'd come out with Trayvon Walker essentially for an edge rusher. And then you'd be like, all right, now we need to put the gameplay attributes in there because we don't have any right now. That's what Trayvon Walker is to the Texans. Hamilton isn't like the other end of the scale entirely, but he's headed in that direction. He's a guy that potentially posted a 4.7 40. He's got, big size and those kinds of things, but his game playability is off the charts. Like there's that one of his highlight reel plays, that famous play where he makes a play on the on the ball towards the sideline on the opposite side of the field of the one he started on. And if you watch the end zone copy of that view, you're more than 3 seconds into the play before Kyle Hamilton even appears in the shot to make a play on the sideline in the direction away from where he started. that everybody's flowing to. You know, it's nuts. Like, he has literally no right to be involved in that play whatsoever, let alone actually intercept the pass. Don't overthink that. That's the kind of instinct that you can't teach. You can't, no amount of going into the lab and getting the creative player and like sitting him down and trying to like teach, matchsticks, holding the eyes open and rolling through film. Like, you can spend the next 10,000 years trying to show him plays, and he'll never be able to do that if it's not innate. Hamilton can already do that. That, we talk about the kind of head start that the being in your head gives you. Like, you get a couple of yards head start because you see it faster than everybody else. I don't know how many yards of a head start it's giving him, but that gave him a lot on that play.
Which means so much more at safety.
Yeah.
What do you call it? The eye head start? Vision head start?
Yeah, something like that. VHS, vision head start, yeah.
VHS.
Yeah.
See, look.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah, you created.
That only works, though, for boomers.
Yeah, and it's a double entendre, right?
Yes.
Because you'd watch a VHS.
Uh-huh.
VHS is vision.
Yeah.
In
Nobody
football.
under the age of like 35 understands what you're saying there.
Yeah. So back in the day, if you wanted to watch stuff, you could watch it on a VHS tape. Yeah, you could record stuff and watch it later. So I like that. Look, I told you to make up draft terms.
Have you thought about making a tape to show people how you're going to change the game? You can watch my VHS of how I'm going to change the game of football.
I could do that.
You could. You send it out right on it.
Send it to every team.
Right, label it. Steve's guide to changing the game of football.
Changing the game.
Mail it out. Snail mail.
Sounds way more pretentious as I look back.
Yeah, a big padded envelope. Send it out to teams.
Maybe you could do a little one-pager on what VHS is and try to get it to scouting departments everywhere. Why don't you do that?
Uh-huh.
Vision head start. That
Okay.
they usually call instincts, Sam. Call it instincts.
It was not instinct.
It's not.
No.
He's not born with it.
Right.
It's like Hamilton couldn't do that right out
It's
of
not like
the
a
crib.
divine sixth sense. You're just seeing it faster than other people. You understand where it is.
So good VHS, good zone length as well. 96th percentile arms. It is crazy, though, when we have his pro day 40 at 4.72.
Yeah, see?
That four safeties is ninth percentile.
Yeah, it's bad.
Now, if you take his 4.59, it's 34th percentile. It's much more reasonable because everything else is pretty much above average except for his 20-yard shuttle. But he's got a sub-7.3 cone. You've got the change of direction. You've got the vertical and the broad. That's the part that's weird, right? The explosion numbers are there. And I think this is why you can explain away the 40. I mentioned this when he did run it. If you have great burst and explosion and you don't have a great 40 time, there's probably a technique issue in your first 10 yards, in your starts. And I don't really care if my safety is a good starter, so to speak, in running his 40. I do care if he has burst and explosion that shows up on the field, plus VHS. It's a good combination. So maybe Kyle Hamilton shouldn't be dropping at all. I think either way, just the fact that he's a safety brings him in risk. The fact that he didn't have the player level college production. The player had 2 full seasons in college and was the top graded safety at Florida State. Top safety in the nation both years that he was a full season player. Hamilton doesn't necessarily have that. So there's always some risk before the 40, but now the Texans have him and Trayvon Walker. I think they're going to find a really good player between the two.
And I don't hate the idea that they have sort of split the resources between those opposite ends of the spectrum, right? The fact that on one pick they've gone with the super upside freak athlete, and then we'll figure out how to make him into an amazing player. And on the other side, we've got a guy who is an amazing player already, and we'll hope that the 40 time essentially is enough to drag him downwards, and then we can still be an amazing player immediately.
All right, you get the Baltimore Ravens up at 14. This time you're going Jordan Davis out of Georgia. I've always felt like he is a Ravens player, right?
Isn't he? Like, the Ravens love players that are built like that. Just a giant body in the middle. And then, for them, I think they have different criteria, essentially, as to what those interior players need to do in order to justify their status in the team. It doesn't necessarily involve bringing a ton of pressure to the table. It's just occupy an absolute massive gulf of space and play as much as humanly possible. Whether it's Michael Pierce, whether it's Brandon Williams, Calais Campbell is still there, which, again, Calais Campbell, as freaky as he is, isn't Jordan Davis freaky, but I'm sure the man knows a trick or two about how to play at 6'9" and 300 pounds and whatever.
Wait, did they bring Campbell back?
Believe so, yeah.
Oh, did I miss that somewhere along the way? They have had those really good run stopping nose tackles through the years.
Yeah, there you go. Calais Campbell still for the Baltimore Ravens. They brought him back.
That's good. I mean, he doesn't have many years left. Probably he's creeping up to our age. I mean, they'll always be the same distance.
Yeah.
But he's creeping up into our age range, we'll say.
Don't say our age like we're the same. You're 40.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
I'm not 40.
You're a boy.
Yeah.
Under 40.
We're not the same age.
Give it 2 months. Give it 2 months, 3 months, and you'll be there. So, yeah, Jordan Davis, I think he's an excellent Raven. Also, with how they blitz. You don't necessarily – do you want guys, dominating? It's not that you need guys dominating as pass rushers up front. You want them to take advantage of one-on-ones, compress the pocket. And this is like that adage you hear when this guy eats up blockers. That is valuable in the Ravens system.
Well, Baltimore has the capacity to keep bodies off Jordan Davis, which I think is quite important, actually.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think that gets a little bit overlooked about Jordan Davis's tape is he can play pretty upright and top-heavy at times, which isn't just a problem so he offsets that well by essentially almost always making first contact on the blocker. So if it's one-on-one, even if he's going to be at a leverage disadvantage basically toward anybody, he usually offsets that by the fact that he's got incredibly long arms and he makes contact first. So he makes the punch first, gets into the guy's chest, and at that point it doesn't matter if he's below him. The leverage is offset. You can't reset. He's already got you beat. Where he gets into trouble, though, it's not even strictly double teams because basically everybody loses against a true double team. But combination blocks, like routine zone combination blocks. When two guys are on him initially, those two guys are able to control him and kind of jolt him backwards in a significant way. And then once he's moving backwards, the momentum of a dude that heavy is just, it's out of whack. Like your chance of re-anchoring that and going in a different direction isn't great. So the greater a team's capacity to keep multiple bodies off Jordan Davis, the better. And Baltimore, given how much they blitz, it almost ensures that everybody has a one-on-one. And Jordan Davis with a one-on-one just has so many tools to make it almost impossible to stop the guy. He's bigger than you are. He's stronger than you are. His arms are longer than you are. He can run faster than you are. He's got a weird amount of quickness for a dude that size. Like if you're an offensive lineman, there's so much working against you one-on-one that means it's almost certain he's going to have some kind of impact.
Dontari Poe is the last player of similar size of freaky combine. Not at Jordan Davis level freaky, but the last player. And he went at, I think it was 13 for Poe, right after Fletcher Cox. Poe never really – he developed into a good player, never developed into that high-end player. I'll be keeping an eye on that, I think, from Jordan Davis and Poe historically.
I mean, Vita Vea is the other one, right?
But Vita, I think, had a different level of production as well.
Yeah, but he's the last freaky giant monster to go high. I mean, he's also now become...
And he's panned out as a guy that just, with incredible strength, pushes the pocket.
Right.
I can see teams seeing that in Jordan Davis.
Yeah, Vita Vea was always a much better pass rusher than Jordan Davis has been. He was also, by the way, a better run defender than Jordan Davis has been, and he played much more. So Vea generally was a better prospect.
Despite not having the length, right? Didn't have the length.
Right.
Maybe that's the position.
And wasn't it wasn't anything like the athlete. Didn't have anything like he ran a 5.10 as opposed to a 4.8 or whatever, like 0.3 of a second for it's significant.
All right, so the Eagles are up at 15. They're going to go Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis's teammate on the interior. In the past, you've given Wyatt to the Ravens. You're going with him to the Eagles here at 15. The Eagles end up coming back a couple picks later, and they're taking edge George Karlaftis from Purdue. I like the way you're comping him to Brandon Graham, current Eagle, and
I think
Eagles
Renner.
legend.
Yeah, I think Renner came up with that comp, and the more that he said it, or the more that I've thought about it, the more I think it's actually a really apt one. Karlaftis. So I think if the Eagles came out of this draft with Wyatt and Karlaftis, I think that would be fantastic for them. And I think it's very reasonable, actually, to suggest that they'll have an option to do that, whether it's this order, Wyatt first, Karlaftis second, or the opposite, Karlaftis first, Wyatt second. I think there's a good chance they end up with both those players if they want them. And they're basically ready-made Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham replacements. Okay, the chances of them becoming Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham are small because, obviously, but Devontae Wyatt is a pretty big body inside, can do everything. He's got great quickness for a guy that size, is productive against the run and the pass, will live in the backfield. He's your Fletcher Cox replacement. And then Karlaftis, that dude, I really love the Brandon Graham thing because he just keeps working, He's got good hands. He gets pressure probably more than he's going to get sacks, just given his profile. But he wins all the time. That dude had a pass rush win rate of 23.6% last year. That's better than Thibodeau. That's insane. And he will get you pressure, which is what Graham did. And even if he didn't always end it with a sack, he was incredibly productive for years playing with that style.
I feel like power first edges just don't get enough credit in general, right? I mean, you tend to get productive players like a Karlaftis, and they will go a little bit lower. He's got he's kind of a one-year breakout as well. He was very good in 2019. Karlaftis only played 148 snaps in 2020, but he was excellent last year with a 90-plus pass rush grade, including that really high pass rush win rate, as you said. I like the concept of the Eagles replenishing on the defensive line. I think they've tried to take a few stabs at that the last couple of years, but they've always been at their best with a top 5 type of defensive line. So adding Devontae Wyatt and then adding Karlaftis at 18. I like that as a move. Maybe a couple other places that they could go as well. But the team that the Eagles traded with, I mean, is this the best draft that you had? As far as if the fans come out with these 2 picks, if the team comes out with these 2 picks, they're going to be thrilled. Say what you want about what the Saints did to get to 16 and 19 with their 2 picks. But I think the two lines of reasoning for why the Saints did this: 1, they're trying to make another move to go get a QB, or 2, they have 2 massive needs. They need a tackle, they need a receiver, and they're just going to fill those needs in positions of value on the board. And that's what happens here. Charles Cross from the tackle from Mississippi State, he goes at 16 here. And then you have Chris Olave at 19, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Charles Cross, another guy that's been going in the top 10 everywhere. I think he's going to be number 2 on our finalized draft board. Mike Renner loves him, one of the best pure pass protectors in the draft, fills the Saints' left tackle need. And then Chris Olave, go back to the possession receiver from Ohio State if you're the Saints. I would love this if I was a Saints fan, these two potential picks.
Yeah, I mean, if this is their idea that they just want 2 picks in the first round this year, forget next year. We'll deal with next year. But right now we have 2 holes that we really need to fill with a starting offensive tackle and a starting wide receiver. If that's the plan, and they're here at 16 and Charles Cross is on the board, I think they would be absolutely ecstatic. I mean, and again, it's the ripple effects of those 3 defensive ends going 1, 2, 3. All of a sudden, a guy like Charles Cross is sitting there at 16 when he's been a pick at 6 to the Panthers a lot. All those that would be insane for New Orleans. But a move that they would run up to the announcing table and be like, hell yeah.
Podium.
That's the word, yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm here for you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You got it. Let me know if you need a metaphor or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe that's a little bit beyond you today.
Never know. Now the mind's refreshed. I'm back at it.
I like the way your only good metaphor was in describing how you can't come up with good metaphors.
How bad my metaphor is? It was aging Vince McMahon trying to take a stunner.
Yeah.
Oh, painful. Painful, Vince. They got it, though. They eventually got it. Just as I would with a metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love that if I was a Saints fan. Chargers, so they're picking at 17. Do I have to do a quick recap? Or just send people to the website?
Nah, the mock's there.
PFF.com.
I even tweeted it.
You tweeted it. Okay. PFF.com. You just got to go read it on the website.
Or the Twitter account. What is it? PFF NFL Pod.
Yeah, PFF NFL Pod. We tweeted it out. PFF.com.
It's everywhere.
Sam's mock. You've got the whole list. We'll tweet out the actual list later probably and all that stuff. But Trevor Penning at 17 to the Chargers, the Northern Iowa tackle. Again, I think the Chargers are in this really nice, this sweet spot, right? If they want to fill their right tackle need, I think there's a couple options there that match value-wise. If a player like Kyle Hamilton does fall, I think the Chargers, the more I think about this, I think that's where CeeDee Lamb went, right? The Cowboys. That 15, and this is where, did the player go 17th as well?
So, yeah.
That might be the best spot in the draft.
17.
You're going to get a top 10 caliber player that falls, and you could pounce, or there's probably a player good enough. I would just want to pick 17th every year.
Okay.
Because of the possibilities that we're talking through.
You could probably arrange that. I mean, but just by trading every year.
You could just be
trade to 17.
Just trade to 17.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I'll give you number 3 for 17.
It's the sweet spot. It's probably the best level of investment. Get a player that drops or fill a need with a value pick. 17. And that's what the Chargers do here with Trevor Penning.
Yeah. Penning's a kind of polarizing prospect all of a sudden. There's a lot of people that love him. I mean, I'm talking to Trevor Sikkema about it and saying, look, as soon as the videos of that dude at the Senior Bowl came out, he was going to get overdrafted by 10 spots, right? Just by burying people on the ground, trying to start a fight every single rep. Our coaches love that stuff, right?
Oh, of course.
So he was going to go higher than he should. But there are some problems in his tape. Now, you have to sort of weigh that with, well, he's also working with Duke, you know? Duke will fix those problems for you.
He's with Duke too?
Yeah. Duke will sort
so
of
we
right
can't
at
say anything negative about him.
No. So, but those problems are there from his tape, and the tape's in northern Iowa, so it's not like you can, there's some concerns there. So
Duke does good work.
I think it's reasonable that he ends up somewhere in the middle of the first round rather than like way at the top that I think Duke is trying to talk him up into, or significantly lower than that, which is where like Mike Renner might have him. This, to me, feels like a sweet spot. And if Charles Cross goes one spot ahead, this is the kind of tackle run type of spot that the Chargers might just jump on.
The thing about Penning coming from a small school, you do want to see domination in small school competition. We didn't see it until this year, but he did dominate this past season from a grading standpoint, especially from a run game perspective. Did have some pass pro issues at the Senior Bowl. There's still work to do there, but a monster 6'7", 330 plus, and classic right tackle, Sam, as a mauler. So I like that for the Chargers. The Chargers also, because I think they're good everywhere else, you just don't want to have Storm Norton forced to play right tackle again, right? And I don't think Penning will be that level as a pass protector, even as a rookie. So that should be an upgrade there, I think, as well.
Yeah.
We discussed the Eagles and the Saints. So that jumps up to number 20. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking another tackle. It's Bernard Ryman out of Central Michigan. Where are we going to play Ryman here if you're the Steelers?
I'd give him the left tackle gig, yeah.
Over Dan Moore, who is a mid-round rookie, was a below-average tackle last season.
Yeah, in a really easy situation in terms of Roethlisberger getting the ball out of his hands faster than any other quarterback in the NFL by a significant margin. Immediately, this year you have to factor in whoever is starting a quarterback for the Steelers, the job of pass protection gets harder. And, some Steelers fans have said, yeah, but whoever's there is going to be mobile this year, right? Trubisky, he can run. So it's going to be easier. Like, yeah, but you don't, as a tackle, you don't really gain from the quarterback running around. Now, you might gain in terms of like the sack number goes down. So on paper, you look better, but your job gets harder because the quarterback is A, holding onto the ball longer, B, is not necessarily where you think he is, right? For all the flaws of a guy who can't really move being back there in the pocket, at least you know where the hell he is, and therefore know where you need to be. You know what I mean? Like when a guy is rushing to try and hit, when you know where he's trying to get to, it's a hell of a lot easier to get in the way. When you don't really know where the quarterback is going to be because he's running around, that's your life isn't easier.
The bottom line in that analysis is if someone says a mobile quarterback is going to help your offensive line, it's just not true if you're individually evaluating the offensive line.
They're only thinking about it in terms of the sack number. Like, he might take less sacks because he runs around, but that isn't helping.
But most of the time, that's also false, because if you are a mobile quarterback or you're trying to extend plays, most of those guys who are not Patrick Mahomes and they take more sacks, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, most of them. Josh Allen's really good at avoiding sacks. Patrick Mahomes is good at avoiding sacks. But that's based off this like picture in your head that like, oh, you're going to whiff on blocks and your quarterback's going to get out of it. Like, that doesn't make you a good tackle just because your quarterback got out of your bad block.
Right. And in particular, in PFF system, like, that's not helping the tackle at all, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just changing that perspective of what does helping the tackle mean.
At the point where you're lying face first in the turf and your defensive end is running towards the quarterback, whether the quarterback is able to escape that or not is not affecting your grade, right? You already lost.
Right.
Your record on this play is already heavy defeat. Nothing that happens after that changes that. The only thing that changes is the quarterback capable of turning your crappy play into something positive for the offense and potentially extending the drive and keeping it going and giving you more chances to play. But all that's doing is giving you another opportunity to either win or lose the play. If you're bad, it's not helping, right? It's just giving you more chances to be bad and lose.
So either way, the Steelers need offensive line help. If Malik Willis is off the board, I could see this happening. I would say, though, I think they're going Tyler Linderbaum if this situation presents itself.
Whatever.
I think they would go center here. Missed opportunity here. Keep the same colors. We discussed this. Linderbaum's the guy for the Steelers.
Your dude, what was his name?
Pony.
The Pony, yeah.
Yeah.
The Pony.
Andrew Filipponi.
The Pony said that Linderbaum wasn't a Steeler.
No. He said classic Steeler, I think. He said he didn't like Penning.
Oh, he didn't like Penning.
Just because they don't draft tackles.
Okay. Even though Penning clearly is
They had Dan Moore start as a rookie. They're probably high on him developing, and they've got a core for it.
High on him developing, but not
because they're probably because they drafted him, and they're probably high on him developing because that's
they
what
drafted
they did.
the center as well.
Yeah, but he was really bad though. Couldn't even snap. Kendrick Green, and he's a guard. So
the previous center they had couldn't snap, and he was an All-Pro.
And they loved him.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really confusing in that building. It's really confusing in Pittsburgh. Anyway, they're going to go Bernard Ryman here in your mock. Puts the Patriots up at number 21. Trent McDuffie from Washington. I pushed back on this a couple weeks ago just because Patriots traditionally have been a man-heavy team, and you might not want McDuffie in that press man situation. He's an awesome zone corner. I think the Patriots are changing their scheme a little bit, and boy, McDuffie's just a really good player. I could see this happening.
Yeah.
In real life.
I also don't think he's he doesn't have the length, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's useless in press.
Right. Yeah. But he can play press man. It's just that he's not going to do what Sauce Gardner is able to do in terms of completely eradicating a player through physicality and blotting out the sun at the catch point. But he will stick to a guy in press man. It's just that if a quarterback wants to feed the target, there's going to be a window to put that ball because the dude's just not big enough.
Yeah. I like McDuffie. I like him a lot. I could definitely see this as one of the plays for the Patriots. I do think they're going to – there's a few of the tackles are off the board in this particular mock. I could see them drafting offensive line for the future, drafting big dudes up front, if a Jordan Davis falls, whatever it might be. But cornerback need as well is pretty high for the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, the length thing is insane at the catch point if you ever get to that situation. I mean, I played against a corner that was 6'2", pretty long, and we would do red zone drills, right? So it was literally an end zone fade, which is already an idiot low percentage play. So obviously we're drilling that.
Right.
So, you release off the line, you get to the back pylon, you look back, and this 6'2" corner with pterodactyl arms is just up here, literally blocking out the sun between, you can't even see the ball arriving, let alone make a play on it.
Just because you're outmatched, man.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that if you have a corner like that, like Sauce Gardner, the difference between that and a dude that's 5'10" with stumpy little hands, that guy's not getting in the way of you and the ball. You can see it.
What I write
It's a
for
big
Sauce.
Difference.
Length that plays at the catch point.
Yeah,
for
that's
Sauce.
exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm trying to just get good one-liners on everybody.
Yeah.
Let's get that catch point length.
Catch point length.
Yeah, CPL. Catch point length for Sauce.
Yeah, but those are the plays that comes into effect, right? If you throw those kind of contested targets or this jump ball or the back shoulder or whatever it is, that's where the difference between McDuffie and Sauce Gardner comes into play. However sticky McDuffie is throughout the route and in coverage, once the ball arrives, you're just working with many inches less length to be involved.
However, Trent McDuffie, in my notes, moves like a gymnast.
A gymnast.
Graceful mover. He's going through the floor routine, just floating around.
I would like to see instead of on a play, instead of a back pedal, if he does that, where they spring and they back flip and they just keep going.
Oh, that'd be great.
He could do that all the way down the field.
I saw Matt Miller tweet that McDuffie's teammate Kyler Gordon is not going to get out of the first round, according to teams that he talked to. Kyler Gordon, in a lot of first-round mock drafts and all that stuff. Kyler Gordon also has one of the weirdest plays we saw on tape during this entire draft cycle, where he's playing cover two.
And then just sits down?
Literally sits down on the play.
Yeah.
Hides. And then the ball.
In plain sight.
Yes. And then on a scramble drill, the receiver just gets behind him for a big gain.
Yeah.
Did you ever play, I don't know, when we played pickup football, you'd kind of you'd cover your man and just play off and hope that the quarterback threw it and you'd try to bait him, right?
Yeah, there are times kind of when hiding makes sense. That was not one of these times.
When does hiding make sense? Like legitimately going to the ground.
Yeah, but if there's a body between you and the dude, and you can kind of hide behind him, and he doesn't see you there, then it kind of makes sense. Like you can hide behind linebackers and stuff, but he's literally hiding just in the middle of the field in wide open space. He's not hiding behind anything. He's just hiding.
I thought it was hilarious. It's
like a kid.
I want to check and see if he did it other times and if it worked.
It's like a kid playing hide and seek. Where they just put their hands in front of their eyes. They're like, you can't see me. Instead of hiding behind something.
If you're near the ground, you're not going to see a jersey and you're not going to see helmet. And so it looked like he was just trying to bait the quarterback, but then forgot to cover the receiver, and it was great. So that's Kyler Gordon from Washington. No knock. I mean, I appreciate the creativity.
I don't. No.
I got a good chuckle out of it.
I don't appreciate that creativity.
I just don't know what that technique is.
That was not useful.
Play a little high technique. All right, we got 22. The Green Bay Packers. We're going to talk about this is like your pick here. George Pickens from Georgia.
Yeah.
The mock draft sim didn't like it because we didn't move Pickens up the board high enough by the time we did this.
Yeah, it'll like it more when we update that day.
Pickens is moving up the draft board in the final PFF draft board. But Pickens at 22 to the Packers, I'd love that pairing with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, look, I think...
Now they have Sammy Watkins, by the way, also in Green Bay.
An Aaron Rodgers move, apparently.
That was a Rodgers move.
That was GM Rodgers flexing the muscles.
I mean, he was good with Randall Cobb last year.
So he's going up to number 28 in the big board.
Oh, so they'll love this pick way more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's not really a D. You should update the D-.
I wanted to, but nobody coordinated with me as to when these things were happening, so I was...
I saw Austin went dark on you. Didn't answer any of your questions.
Nothing. Not a thing. So, yeah, look, I think Pickens is underrated in this draft at the moment, which I'll be writing later today, by the way.
Nice.
And the reason I think that is because I think this is a good wide receiver class. I think it's a deep wide receiver class, but it is not either good or deep on true number one X wide receiver skill sets, right? And that's why, when Christian Watson runs his 4.3, everyone's losing their minds because all of a sudden that dude is like, oh, hang on. This is another one. This is this X wide receiver skill set that we didn't even think was that good. All of a sudden, he's running at insane speed. First rounder, throw him in there. Like, that's happening because there is this lack of true prototypical Julio Jones, Jamar Chase type number one X receivers. George Pickens has that skill set. Now, is that to say he's a perfect prospect and, doesn't have some concerns in the ACL and the lack of production? No, obviously. But he's one of the guys that has that potential range of outcomes there that other players just don't have, right? Like Chris Olave is never going to be that guy. He's a different type of receiver, and that's fine. But if that's the skill set you need, if that's what you're missing, then Pickens, I think, is on your short list of like 5 guys that you're even interested in.
He's got incredible body control.
Yes.
And he can, when you know how much Rodgers loves to not throw to the middle of the field, to throw outside the numbers, to throw back one-on-one situations, to throw back shoulders and all that stuff. Pickens might be the best in the class. I mean, Drake London, if you gave Drake London, well, you could have in this. You could have given Drake London to Aaron Rodgers and given him that type of body to throw to. But, yeah, Pickens, I think, would be a really nice pairing with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he got great hands as well, has more than enough speed. He's got the size, 6'3". Like, he's got that skill set. And obviously this is a team that just traded away Devontae Adams. They need to replace an entire receiving core. And Pickens, I think, takes you a long way.
Arizona Cardinals at number 23, they're going center Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa. Mm-hmm. So he's just going to come in and replace Rodney Hudson, right? We're just going to replace the aging center.
Yeah.
I like this fit for Arizona.
Rodney Hudson made a massive difference to this offensive line immediately. Came in, made a huge, and yet it was by far Rodney Hudson's worst year in terms of PFF grading.
Some snap issues.
Well, snap issues, and just wasn't as good overall. And for a guy of his age, I think it's probably the start of the end. Even if offensive line and players generally are lasting longer and longer, having some kind of Rodney Hudson succession plan will probably be very smart for Arizona, particularly for a team whose offseason seems to be largely built around maintaining what they have as opposed to taking big strides in a different direction or in a getting better sense. So I think Linderbaum makes a lot of sense.
When I look at Linderbaum, I mentioned it when I paired him with the Ravens. He has that Jason Kelce-like movement skills, right? I mean, Jason Kelce looks like a little linebacker out in space when you pull him and get him to the second level as a zone blocker. So you can just kind of do different stuff. And if you look at Arizona, the Kyler Murray thing is starting to come to a head. Kyler's saying that he doesn't want to play without a new contract. But if Kyler Murray is still there, and you think about what you could do in the QB run game and expanding your zone blocking techniques and getting Linderbaum in space and all that stuff, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility there. Plus, in general, Arizona's done a really good job of spreading to run and staying efficient on the ground, and Linderbaum can absolutely help that as well. And he weighed over 300, so he's not undersized anymore, right?
Yeah. What did he get, 302 or something he got to?
Yeah.
But he still got short arms.
It just feels weird that I'm like an undersized center, weight-wise. But I'm close to being good enough.
Yeah. I mean, you're like,
Center-wise.
your prototypical tackle size-wise, just not – you got to add some weight.
More of like a zone tackle, though.
Yeah,
Not the
well,
300
weight,
yet.
you're not there, but like length. You got the length that
True.
teams covet at the position.
True. Tackle length.
Yeah.
Not zone length. It's tackle length.
Yeah.
All right, Linderbaum to the Cardinals at 23. Then the Cowboys are going Zion Johnson. But, wait, we've got breaking news here.
We do?
Breaking news. The final version of the PFF draft guide is live. It's over there at PFF.com. And the breaking news is that you can get 50% off a PFF Elite annual subscription using the promo code DRAFT50. You get 365 days of Elite. You get all of PFF's locked article content, the draft guide, which just came out. I have it at 567 pages. Is that right? 500-something pages. It's a monster. We added all sorts of new players and profiles and breakdowns and the whole thing. You get the completely unlocked mock draft simulator. That's what we use to do our mock drafts. Data and grades for the entire 2021 and upcoming 2022 season. I think USFL's in there. They started. It's all part of your Elite package. You get 50% off right now. The promo code's DRAFT50. I mentioned Hutch, 4-part podcast series. Mentioned that earlier. That launched last week, so check that out wherever you're listening to podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, go check it out on the PFF page here. 4-part series breaking down Hutch, potential #1 overall NFL draft prospect. It's out there right now. Team worked really hard on this. We appreciate you if you go check it out. And we appreciate Hutch for taking the time to talk to Austin. Because who the heck wants to do that? Hutch did. Anyway, go check it out. That's right, breaking news. The PDF is out there. Number 24, the Dallas Cowboys go Zion Johnson.
Yep.
Guard out of Boston College. You love this combination here.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it makes a ton of sense. I think they have a need at guard or tackle. They don't seem to think that they have a need at tackle. Terrence Steele, they've got faith in Terrence.
You and your response to like two fans is just my favorite.
This isn't two fans. This is a lot of people seem to think that Terrence Steele, the Cowboys have a lot of faith in Terrence. You know?
Fine.
Did you see, by the way,
Did you read the tea leaves?
I haven't read the tea leaves. Followed the tea leaves. Not even read them. Just follow them.
You don't. You have to
No,
follow.
you don't read them. You just follow them. Follow the tea leaves.
I don't read or follow
wherever they
either.
go. There was a picture or a video of, it was like a Jerry Jones press conference maybe at the Star, and they have that, there's a sort of giant, press area seating and stuff, and there's like a big balcony up here, right, connected to various other parts of the building. Jerry Jones is coming from, inside the labyrinth somewhere, gets to the balcony, surveys the, I was like, my subjects or something, and then chuckles and walks down, gives the press conference. I kind of love Jerry Jones. He's just
You love a good billionaire.
I
Yeah.
just think he's doing it the right way, right? If
Yeah.
you're going to be a billionaire and you're going to have legitimate, FU money, isn't that the way to do it? Buy a football team, run it yourself. I don't care what you think.
Act like king.
You're right.
Yeah.
I own this thing. It's mine. I'm going to do with it what I choose, and you just have to live with it. And yeah, every now and again I'll tell you some stuff, drop some little seeds of information, but you're at my beck and call because I'm the billionaire. I got the Jerry bus. I got the yacht. I got
having
this
fun.
whole complex.
Yeah.
I got the $1 billion stadium with the blinding light at one end just because I like the look of it.
The blinding.
It's he's doing it the right way.
The blinding light's great.
I love that.
At least it's for both teams.
I like Jerry Jones and I like Elon Musk getting sick of Twitter, so he's just gonna buy it.
Obviously, that's
That's
the move.
what I would do if I had that kind of money.
Straight cash, homie. That's how
Yeah.
you do it.
I like
Cash.
that. Sure. Could they do better things with their money? Help people maybe. Whatever. I'm just saying. There's a certain part of me that really appreciates a good
Maybe buying Twitter is helping people.
yeah. There's a certain part of me that just genuinely appreciates a good I'm rich and this is what I'm going to do with it. What of it? I like that.
We need a whole show on your analysis of the best billionaires in the world and their mentalities. I thought you were going to say that the Cowboys leaked their draft board again. That usually comes out after the draft, but I thought you were going to say he was like carrying his draft board.
No. That wouldn't shock me.
Somehow there was like a 5-year period where 5 years in a row the Cowboys draft board somehow got leaked in videos and all that stuff, and it was great. So the Cowboys go in Zion Johnson to play left guard. I don't think they have a clean. I don't know. Do they have a clean right tackle prospect there anyway?
No, not anymore. Not in this draft. I mean, they've
until the Titans pick at 26. The Bills at 25 are going to go Andrew Booth, the corner out of Clemson, cornerback 2, opposite Tre'Davious White. I'm not the biggest Booth fan, but
I was going to say,
wouldn't
it's you
hate
that
this.
doesn't like him, right?
Yeah, I'm just not a huge Booth fan. You like him? You like this fit? I mean, as a corner 2 for the Bills in their scheme, it'd be fine. I mean, I'm just not high on him.
He's really inexperienced, though, which I think is a good thing for him. Like, because his athleticism, his footwork is insane. Renner doesn't like his tackling because he misses a few, but he also like hits people like a train and has a highlight reel full of plays where he's like burying, bubble screens, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. So you take a guy who's physical, who's willing to get up and mess with receivers, who's got great footwork, and has played okay despite being incredibly inexperienced, and you put him on a team where he only needs to be the number 2, I'm all for it. I think
I'll go back. I'll go back to the film, and like Zay Flowers was. I'm just going back through my notes here. I got him guessing a lot, and I feel like he was guessing a lot. So when I'm watching him, I felt like a lot of his plays were guesswork, and that came back to bite him at other times. I know you say that happens a lot in college with double moves and all that stuff.
He
also liked
it's
Trent
like year
McDuffie.
one.
He felt small. Like he just felt like he was going to get out physical at the next level. Moves extremely well. I'll go back to the film with Booth. Give him another chance here.
Okay.
But that's fine. That's fine for the Bills at 25. I can see them going corner there. Where'd my mock go? Where'd it go? Bills at 25. Titans at 26. This is where you go Tyler Smith from Tulsa. He's newly minted top 32 player, I think, on our draft board. Always graded well at Tulsa. Kind of like a similar description. You mentioned Ike Ekwonu, maybe Trevor Penning, like guys that just maul in the run game but have some question marks as far as pass protection goes.
Yeah, and Tyler, so this is becoming a more and more common first-round pick just across the draft landscape, whatever you want to call it. Like a lot of people are now mocking Tyler Smith in the first round. And he has been described as this group of 5 version of Ike Ekwonu, which is this dominant run-blocking monster who maybe not quite as good as in pass protection. The difference, though, aside from level of competition, is Smith is doing it with like none of the technique. So Ekwonu, not only is he a mauler, but his technique is amazing in the run game. Like he's doing it with outstanding fundamentals. Smith is just doing it. Like, there's no fundamentals. There's no technique. It's just all just going out there and crushing people, which feels a little bit like the Derek Stingley thing, right? Like, if he's able to put up those numbers with, like, zero give a crap or zero technique to what he's doing in workout, in the pro day, that's a good thing, right? Like that metaphor, if you've got 2 guys running the same time, you take the guy with the crappy technique because once you teach him the proper technique, he's better, yeah? So if Tyler Smith is able to do what he's doing right now, which is like a 94 run blocking grade, like if he's able to post a 94 run blocking grade effectively without any idea what he's doing, you take that because then as soon as you teach him what he's doing, he's just going to destroy, like absolutely remove anything in front of him.
Theoretically, maybe, but there's also a chance he doesn't get it. But look, this
is also the same argument as like the Trayvon Walker thing, right? Like if he's able, like if he's this freaky athletically, as soon as you teach him what he's doing, boom. But that's why this guy's going 26 in this mock as opposed to, 3 or 2 or 1.
The mock draft sim didn't love it just because we had Smith lower on the draft board. Once that gets finalized, it'll like it a lot better. But yeah, Tyler Smith to the Titans. Titans fans have at it if you don't like it. I want to know who Titans fans want at that point.
I don't think they care. They just don't want who you want to give them.
All right. Well, number 26. We didn't forget you, Titans. Tyler Smith, the monster tackle out of Tulsa, going in the first round there. The Tampa Bay Bucks up at 27. They're going Kenyon Green. Texas A&M filled that left guard spot. 93.2 run blocking grade on zone runs. And look, if the Bucks are going to make another Super Bowl run, they have to figure out left guard at some point. So I think a lot of the early rumors were that they were going to probably take a guard here. They don't have as many holes as last year, though. So the Bucs can go or they have more holes than last year. They can go a few different avenues, but I think Green might be a good fit here at 27.
Yeah, I mean,
you see them filling a need and just filling out the roster, right?
If they went into that first year and were like, we need to get a right tackle, like grab Tristan Wirfs, boom, offensive line is complete. I would find it I would think it's unusual if they did not attack guard. Like, I understand they have some players on the roster that could potentially fill that role and battle it out in training camp and, win the job or whatever, but at the very minimum, I would kind of expect them to draft a guy in the first round and at least make that a battle with, the likes of Leverett rather than just give him the job. So I think that's probably what they do.
Yeah, you got to figure something out at left guard. I don't think they're going to roll in the season what they have. Packers come back at 28, so they grab George Pickens at 22. Jermaine Johnson, the edge from Florida State. Now, I'm far more on board with picking Jermaine Johnson here than maybe in the top 15 where he had been rumored. Once again, dominant Senior Bowl, 1 year of very good production, not great production, low 80s PFF grade. So never really dominated in college, but he was behind all those dudes at Georgia on the defensive line. And, man, this could be a really nice fit for the Packers.
Yeah, this is another one where I think they just make this move out of value. Like, I think that they would expect Jermaine Johnson to be gone far before this. I kind of would as well. And yet if he ends up being here. So if you're Green Bay, I don't think that double dipping at wide receiver would be crazy, even with Sammy Watkins on board. And if you did it here, you'd kind of be screwing over Kansas City, one pick behind you. So there'd be almost more incentive to do it. But like if Jermaine Johnson is sitting there at this pick, I think that would just be too good a value to turn down. There's one Jets fan in my mentions that seems to have the Jets draft board to hand, which is useful.
He's got the board.
Well, yeah.
From Reddit.
According to him, the Jets would take Jermaine Johnson at 4. So that mock would be edge rusher 1, 2, 3, 4.
Really?
So there, the Jets, number 4, or a player that the Jets would have at number 4 overall, even in this scenario, is going 28 here.
Well, so where would the Jets go at 10?
I don't think that's important.
They just go Jermaine Johnson at 4.
Right, just edge at 4.
Take whichever.
If you're following the tea leaves and you have their draft board, you would take Jermaine Johnson at 4.
Are they giving out their draft board like the Cowboys?
I don't know. Maybe it comes with the season ticket package,
That would be great. That would be great. Don't tell anybody, but here's the draft board. So he's already breaking their confidentiality.
Yeah, maybe they didn't give. Maybe they don't have one. Maybe it's just
Jermaine Johnson's
maybe it's
just
an
number
honesty
1
policy
on their board. Maybe he's number 1 on their board. They're going to get their number 1 player at number 4.
I mean, it could be. His tweet was, with all due respect, the top 3 players are different on the Jets board than PFF's. They'd take Jermaine Johnson at 4.
I mean, yeah, but there's probably 33 different boards if you include PFF.
Yes.
There's 32 teams, PFF, and all the boards are going to be different. Of course.
Yeah.
All right. So Jermaine Johnson at 28 to the Packers. Love that as a pick. And so if Packers come away with Jermaine Johnson and George Pickens, we've talked about doubling up at receiver, but now they've got Sammy Watkins, right? Maybe you don't have to double up as much. You got Sammy. Still have Randall Cobb at the moment. Not bad.
Aaron Rodgers seems to be collecting a style of receiver that GM Rodgers likes. Maybe there's a reason they haven't had his involvement.
Sammy Watkins and Randall Cobb are not the same style other than they've been in the league a long time.
Well, they're the same style in terms of over the hill.
Cobb is still good.
They're assembling Aaron Rodgers.
Randall Cobb is still good.
GM Aaron Rodgers appears to be assembling a receiving core that would be amazing in 2016.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna get the most out of Sammy Watkins.
That's the theme that he's working with here in terms of similar style.
Familiarity. And then you add George Pickens to the group, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be just fine. All right, Chiefs back to back. Imagine if this happens here.
Yeah.
Wide receiver Drake London. Mm-hmm. Wow, how did he fall this far? And then
butterfly
edge
effect.
Boye Mafe.
Ripples. All these things.
You have a lot of ripples. It's I don't think there were a ton of players that were overdrafted necessarily in your mock, but there was a lot of players that felt like they fell.
Right.
There was a lot of stuff that made sense.
Here's the thing, right? You do mocks, and every year it's this guy's never going to fall. This is ridiculous. But every time I do a mock, there are times where it feels like a guy is sliding, and it's not that easy to find a place where he's naturally going to go. And this happens every year in the draft. People slide for no good reason. CeeDee Lamb was arguably the best prospect in that draft, certainly the second best. And yet he slid all the way to 17. The player slid all the way to 17. This guy
Sweet spot.
Right. But these guys were supposed to be top 10, top 5 talents, and they end up sliding as far as 17. Players have slid further than that in the past. Like, it happens every single year because a lot of teams do draft for need, because sometime the draft unfolds in a weird way and you end up picking a player you never expected to pick. And that's kind of what happened here. That run to start the draft, edge rusher 1, 2, 3. Apparently should have been edge rusher 1, 2, 3, 4. The fact that those guys went in that order immediately upsets the sort of the standard draft that everybody is expecting. And it only takes like 3 picks, 3 more picks from that on to go in a slightly different direction because an unexpected player is available for a guy like Drake London or Jermaine Johnson to suddenly be sitting there like low 20s or high 20s rather, and like unexpectedly be available at this spot.
This happens every year.
Yeah.
Right? Every single year there are teams that just pick differently than what the consensus assumed they were going to do. And it looks like there are great values that fall. So if the Chiefs get Drake London and Boye Mafe out of Minnesota, I think that's a huge win there. Mafe, great burst and had a very good Senior Bowl. And you just see how much he can really threaten the edge. They have a big need for just overall defensive line talent, but certainly a pure one-on-one pass rusher. And then the Chiefs adding London. Here's the other interesting thing about London. They added Valdez-Scantling. They added Juju Smith-Schuster. It seemed like there were some tweets about how the Chiefs were trying to be different stylistically, namely bigger and size-wise. So this would obviously match up with that too. Drake London, the biggest receiver in the draft as far as size, just height and ability to win at the catch point, plays huge. That'd be fascinating to see this Chiefs wide receiver core with that type of size and just a complete departure from what they'd been as this, basketball on grass type of offense.
Yeah. No, it would. I mean, I think it would represent a change in direction at that position and how they've been doing things, obviously, with Tyreek Hill. But, I mean, I would be fascinated to see Patrick Mahomes playing with Drake London.
I would too. Completely different from the speed receivers that they have with Tyreek Hill. All right, so Drake London, Mafe going to the Chiefs. We got 2 picks left. Cincinnati Bengals. They're going cornerback Kaiir Elam out of Florida. A lot of corner seems like a nice. I've seen Kyler Gordon go here, the hider. We've seen corners go here to the Bengals. Initially, it was a bunch of offensive linemen, but they put a lot of effort into building that group this offseason. So maybe that's not. I mean, they can go best player available, but I've seen corner seems like a good place where value matches at 31 here for the Bengals.
Exactly. I think Cincinnati is well positioned that they could be the team that halts the slide of one of these players, right, that ends up being great value. And if a guy like, London or Jermaine Johnson, whoever it is, somebody sliding in the first round ends up making it as far as 31, Cincinnati has put themselves in a position where they can just grab a really good player. But they are in a spot where I think cornerback would arguably be their biggest need. This is a good area of the draft for cornerback value, I think, so it probably matches that they'll just grab one of those dudes. They're also in a decent position, I think, to potentially trade out. If teams think that if Detroit doesn't go Malik Willis at number 2, if teams think that Detroit is going to go quarterback at 32 and they want to jump that, Cincinnati sitting there at 31 is a place to get to. So if you're a team that wants a Matt Corral or Sam Howell or Desmond Ridder, and you think you need to jump over Detroit to make that happen, like the Cincinnati at number 31 is an obvious trade partner.
I think that's really smart too, right? I mean, they're good enough that they can trade down, and I think they should absolutely be answering those phone calls if you're the Bengals. And then the Lions at 32. I keep giving them quarterbacks. A lot of people giving them QBs, and you are not. You're going Treylon Burks, the wide receiver out of Arkansas here. I want to say another value pick, but if he ends up in the second round, I don't think that's going to be surprising at this point, given some of the other receivers and some of the question marks here. That now gives the Lions Kayvon Thibodeau at 2, and then Treylon Burks at 32. A couple good players there with the quarterback still in play for either later in the draft or just next year.
Yeah, I think Treylon Burks, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets drafted almost anywhere. Like, he could go anywhere from top half of the first round, maybe, certainly in the middle of that first round somewhere, to, I mean, you go in the middle of the second round. Like, there's a full round of outcomes that wouldn't surprise me with Burks, because the projection is kind of all over the place. On the one hand, you do have this giant monster receiver that was a devastating playmaker against good competition without great quarterback play. And that's not easy to do. On the other hand, you have a guy that ran pedestrian 40 times, that has reported weight concerns, that played in an offense that didn't really have a conventional wide receiver role for him, and the projection to like a regular NFL receiver role is massive. So what do you do with that? And I think every team is going to have a different answer, right? There's going to be teams that are like, you can't replicate what he did in college. Let's take that and figure out how we use it. And there are going to be teams that are like, there's way too much risk and projection involved here. I'm not touching that in the first round.
So I think by my count, that puts, 6 receivers in the first round? Does that sound right? Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, Drake London, Treylon Burks, and George Pickens. Not in that order, but those 6 all go in the first round. I would say if there's a place where I think we're off a lot of times when projecting the first round, it's at receiver. Where, I mean, I'm comfortable taking receivers and think it's one of the most valuable positions on the field, right? But I think the NFL tends to want to draft the big guys in the first round. Again, when you're doing studies, where do good receivers come from? There's a lot of things that point to getting receivers in the second round, right? The Deebo Samuels of the world, the A.J. Browns of the world came in the second round. I could see that happening in this particular draft. I'm not saying, like, is 6 a little rich? Does it end up at 4? Pickens and Burks maybe don't end up in the first round. They end up in the second. I could just see a lot of teams in a draft of uncertainty looking at the depth of, say, the top 10 receivers or so in this draft and thinking, let's get them in the second. Let's draft our tackles and our edges and all that stuff in the first round. So that'll be interesting to see if the receivers end up falling just a little bit more than we always seem to anticipate.
It's kind of like, what is your response? If you agree with my assessment that this receiver class is low on elite X receiver type of skill sets, your response to that is one of two things. You either start to reach for the ones that are there, i.e. George Pickens goes in the first round, goes up 22 to Green Bay, or you say, so we're just going to wait on wide receiver because it's not a strength of this class. So let's wait until the second or third round and take a shot then when the risk is lower. We'll fill a different spot earlier in the draft. So I think it could go either way, right? You could see teams start to bring in guys like Pickens because he's one of the few that does have that skill set, or you could see them back off and start picking edge rushers where there's a lot more strength.
Yeah, that's, again, I think when teams are evaluating success historically, no matter what they're using as success criteria, that is part of the analysis, right? Is do you have to get certain players in the top half, certain positions at the top half of the draft historically? Do you have to get, or can you get other positions later that you can't get earlier? The scarcity concept, right? Which is different from, here's our draft board, here's who we think the best players are, and we're going to stick to it. You have to play the scarcity game. You got to play the resource game, like I was talking about earlier, and finding a path to the field for Evan Neal. So it's what makes it all fun. And we'll find out next week. I'm about ready to find out how it's going to all shake out.
Well, that's a shame because we still have a while.
We do have a couple weeks, but we're close here. So Sam's Mock Draft, it's over at PFF.com. Go check it out. Don't forget, 50% off your PFF Elite subscription. 50% off for 365 days of access. Draft 50 is your promo code.
That's as cheap as it's going to get. I haven't seen a greater discount than 50%.
We don't go over 50, I don't believe. So this would be the time to get in.
Yep.
You could also get 25% off Edge using NFL Pod.
True.
If you just want to get Edge, use NFL Pod for 25% off. I'll give away an Edge subscription this week as well. So keep sending those screenshots that you subscribe to the Daily and you subscribe to this podcast, and I will give away another free PFF Edge. We did find the guy that signed up his wife. That's what it was.
Wife, yeah.
And we get the guy that's going to sign up his entire company or whatever it is, like his team.
That was contingent on something else, wasn't it? Like reading out his question.
We have to circle back to his email, or something. Maybe on the Wednesday pod.
Maybe.
We have Nate Tice locked in, by the way, for the Player Comp Show. We're going to drop that either Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to pre-record that Player Comp Show, and we're just going to give you guys all the best player comps. Love Nate Tice's player comps, so we're going to have some fun with that this week as well. Anything else?
No. Email us. Email us and donate to the charity so we can get onto the baseball thing.
Just want to watch Sam throw 60-ish.
I see. Even you
Ish.
think
50s.
Even you think it'll be 60. I told you, what was it? Ichiro, 85, just roll out of bed as a ceremonial pitch.
Yeah, dude's got a cannon.
That's got to feel bad if you're you.
Dude's got a cannon.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to hear an Ichiro story?
No.
Oh. We faced
But
him.
he just like,
faced him in spring
That was
training.
a ceremonial pitch, and he threw 85.
Yeah.
You had like a 40-minute warm-up session. You couldn't hit 75.
He's so good at baseball.
Well, yeah.
So good.
But how bad are you?
I'm not in that league. I mean, look, there's a lot of Major League Baseball. There's the distribution of talent at the Major League level. He is the top 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
Special at everything.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that's what he did.
He's not, how big is he?
He's not that big.
Yeah.
He's not that big. He always had a cannon, though,
Isn't that kind of weird?
in the outfield.
You know? Because what? So, you know,
Like Kyler Murray was the 9th overall pick. He's small.
yeah, your athleticism obviously has some flaws to it, you know, particularly now. Like a 40-minute warm-up session can't get you over 75 at the thing you used to do professionally, that kind of thing. But what I am constantly impressed by is just given your sheer size, how much ability that gives a man of your dimensions to just move things, right? Just wait.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were going to the gym at the Y, when we were in this office daily, and we would go to the gym at the Y, just for like rolling in there, having done nothing, you would be like bench rows. You were able to like lift up 90 pounds or whatever just through being a giant human being. That's constantly impressive to a man like of my size who is not a giant human being. Like I could be working out for like a year, and you just by being a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier can lift heavier things than me. It's impressive.
Compliment from Sam.
But
Compliment.
that must feel weird then for you, who's used to that world of being able to, you know, lift heavier things than people, to see just this tiny little dude roll out there and like 85.
He's probably still throwing. He's probably still playing catch.
He's probably just sitting there on the couch watching baseball all day.
No.
And then comes out there ceremonial
I don't think
pitch.
you realize how difficult it is to just roll out of bed and throw the ball hard. It is very difficult, and I think you're underestimating what you're able to do.
I'm just saying it's going to be over 60.
Really quick.
That's been the point all along.
Ichiro came down to spring training one year to just like work on his game, right? So he played against us in like an A-ball spring training game. He's already in the majors, right? He's very good. And I think he was working on his bunting and stuff. So we'd play this minor league.
On your bunting?
He was just working on stuff. So he would lead off every inning, right? Just to get, he wanted to get like 10 at-bats in, and he did. And he'd bunt, and then whatever. He'd lead off every single inning to get his swings in. He had one at-bat against one of our pitchers where he fouled off like 10 straight pitches. It was just like, I don't like that one, don't like that one. Just kept fouling it off. And then he hit an absolute moonshot to right field. As soon as the pitcher came inside on him, you know how that is, turned on it and absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just one of those, like sometimes there are very few players who are just at this other level of good where they can do that kind of stuff. And I got to see it up close one time, and it was like, wow, that's why he's so good. There's not many of them. It's like each, Hall of Fame level.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
Okay.
And then he could throw 85 rolling out of bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't compare me to Ichiro.
I'm just,
Guy's legit. He's got
I'm
the
just saying, if
all-time
it was one of these
single-season hits record, all that stuff.
Like if it was one of these other giant freaks, like what was his name, Randy Johnson? That guy's huge, right? It was someone like Randy rolls out there, throws 85. You as a huge person, we're like, all right, that's what we do, us big people, you know. But a guy like Ichiro, you're like, how does he?
Randy's also coming down from throwing 100.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So I'm just saying, if you're looking at that as a huge person, you'd be like, yeah, I get it. I understand how that huge person, years into his retirement, can still roll out there and fire 85 down there.
That's my former teammate, Randy Johnson.
But you as a large person must be looking at Ichiro and be like, how does that little tiny guy go out there and hit 8? Like, what?
Yeah,
that doesn't
I've
make
done that
sense.
before. Tim Lincecum. Remember Lincecum?
No.
The Giants. Those are my former teammates, by the way. Randy, Timmy.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, we're done.
Yeah.
Baseball talk is through the roof.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We have a player comp show and all sorts of great stuff for you this week. We'll see you Wednesday and Thursday this week.